Hi, I'm Angie Brown with buildingbetterleaders.org. I am your leadership coach and learning facilitator. How do you deal with emotions in the workplace? Do you believe that employees should leave their emotions at home? You know, those days are long gone, and we and our teams are whole people. We want everyone on our team, including ourselves, to show up authentically with all of ourselves, and that includes our emotions. In this video, we are going to examine why it is important that we discover our emotions and that we use them productively, even the negative ones. We are in what I continue to call the conflict house. And today's room is all about feelings or emotions. I kind of want to sing to you, feelings. But you know what? I'm actually not a really good singer. So I'm going to skip that. Today's room is all about emotions. So let's dive in and learn more. One of the things I've learned over years of being in human resources, as well as teaching classes on conflict resolution and 7 habits, is that often this room, the feelings and emotions room, is really where the heart of the conflict is. It's because we're so wrapped up in our own emotions often that we can't move past the conflict because we haven't dealt with the emotions. So once we've learned to do that, we are more effective in conflict resolution. We're more effective in the workplace, period. So stay tuned as we continue to dive into the emotions and feelings room. For more leadership tips and videos, be sure and subscribe to my channel and click that little bell so you get notified each week when a new video arrives. So as I said, this room is most likely to be where the conflict lies. It's really where we can learn the most to move past and to look for solutions, to turn that energy into something that's positive. So before we go too much further, I want to remind you that in the conflict house, our mindset is really important. And I want to remind you that if you've not seen the very first video, part 1 of this series, I invite you at some point to go back and watch that because our mindset really is important in all of the rooms and this room as well, because we are talking about emotions. And in this particular video, we want to challenge our own mindset. Now, I just said this video, we're going to focus on you first, your feelings at work, your emotions, and how do we handle that? There are a lot of emotions. I recently did a Google search on the emotions words, and in the Google search, literally there's hundreds of books that show up, and there's also probably 12 or 13 emotions that are named specifically. Under those emotions, though, are a whole nother subset of words that people use in conjunction with that particular feeling. I've also linked Brene Brown's website below in the show notes because she's got a really great download on emotion words that you can use in the workplace. So tip number 1 is to learn to name the emotions. It's important that we know that we have them and to have that language. We want to have the language that we can use not only with ourselves. I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling disgruntled, I'm feeling devalued. Whatever those words are, we want to be able to name them, and having a good list that we can say, that's the feeling that I'm feeling, allows us to move ourselves into a place of control where we can control our mindset and we can work through the conflict. So tip number 2 is to reframe the feelings back into the conversation. Why is this important? You know, I said before when I started the video that I've had leaders tell me that emotions have no place in the workplace. It's just not true. We don't use them sometimes because we're afraid often of how that will show up and how we will be perceived if we use an emotion word. So it's important that we begin to, as we get out of this room in the conflict house and we work through it, that we acknowledge the emotion and that we use it in our daily language. Sometimes when we're in conflict, we think that if we just make a better argument with the other person, that we won't have to use those feeling words. I want to encourage you. Stop arguing. Stop trying to find the better argument. Just say the emotion. I'm feeling frustrated that you did not complete the assignment on time. Kind of simple. So tip number 3 is to make sure that you don't treat your feelings and emotions as gospel. I want you to envision, and this scenario really helped me a lot, I hope it helps you, a bird flying over your head. And the bird has the thoughts and the feelings, sort of like those little bubble texts that appear sometimes in graphics. Well, so this thought, this emotion appears. Nobody says we have to keep it and hold on to it. We can feel it, we can name it, we can use it in the conversation, and we can work through it. We don't have to be held as hostage to our emotions. So when we talk about emotions not being in the workplace, I want to let you know that they show up anyway. Have you ever been in a meeting with someone where they just shut down and they refuse to participate? Is that you? Is that your method of operating? Because that's an emotion that we're feeling. It's just how the response shows up. So we feel it, we might as well deal with it. The other emotion that I've seen is people who get angry. I have been in meetings where people literally go from very calm to rage and anger in a heartbeat. And I wonder what has happened. Normally, those are individuals who stuff their feelings, and the dam bursts and the feelings are in the workplace. So again, we might as well name them and use that word and deal with them. The third way I've seen the emotions show up is the person that might be in a meeting and they slide that little snarky comment in, or they're the eye roller. Everybody knows those eye rollers. I've been that person myself sometimes. And the other way that it often shows up is that little, just those little harumps, as I want to call them, in meetings. And so it happens. They're already in the workplace. Again, we can choose to name that rather than behaving in ways that are unbecoming in the workplace. Now that we've had an opportunity to discover how these emotions show up, ways that we can name them, be aware of them, and frame them back into the conversation and decide that we're going to work through them, let's go on to questions that we can ask ourselves when we're in the conflict and we're feeling these emotions. Because here is where the work takes place. And when I say work, I mean the work on ourselves so that we can be better leaders. Question 1 is, am I overreacting? I tell you, sometimes I can't actually even ask that question in the moment. Sometimes I have to take a breath. I've often encouraged people to show up to meetings with a water bottle or a coffee cup so that literally when they feel that, they can take that sip of water and have just a moment to collect their thoughts. In that moment, you can ask yourself, am I overreacting? Only you know the answer to that. The second question you can ask yourself is there a hidden emotion? Now, I can tell you from experience, I have been the one in workplaces that occasionally I will roll my eyes. I used to have a supervisor that would go, "What's that eye roll about?" And I didn't understand even myself what I was doing. Honestly, it was because I had these stories in my head or these rules in my head. And as he was talking, they were playing. And I could not separate what was happening from the stories in my head. So I'm a real good example of I know what that feels like, which is why I'm encouraging you to check your own hidden emotions. If you feel yourself being the person that crosses your arms or rolls your eyes or makes those little sounds, ask yourself, what's that about? The third question you can ask yourself is it true? As I explained in the second question, I've been there. I had to ask myself when I was talking to this leader that I had, why am I doing this? And is it attached to an old story? And once I was able to disconnect the story in my head that was happening and the truth of what he was saying, it was easier for me to answer that question. Is it true, or am I replaying old stories? Before we end, I would love to encourage you to do one thing as you work through these emotions. Give yourself some grace. I know that that's not often a word we use in the workplace. It's the truth. Sometimes people come and they need a little bit more grace and a little bit more forgiveness in the emotions area. So do that for yourself. Be okay as you learn to recognize and work through the emotions. I guarantee you, on the other side of that work, you will be a better leader. And you can thank me for it later. Just give yourself some grace as you walk through that journey. For one-on-one coaching or more leadership information and tips, be sure and visit my website at www.buildingbetterleaders.org. Join my Facebook community, comment below, and if this has been helpful for you, please like it and share it with your fellow leaders. I applaud you on this journey that you're in. And as we continue to be curious about ourselves and curious about conflict, this is really where the work happens. And I'm so proud of you and I applaud you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.